Welcome back to BTM to the Basketball Time Machine, the podcast with former NBA players about former NBA players. Today's guest is a true NBA legend, a five-time NBA All-Star who played in the NBA from 1977 until 1990, Marques Johnson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure. Pleasure being here.
Marques, I would really like to know, who was your favorite player as a kid?
Wow. My favorite player growing up, I have to answer that in kind of sections of my youth. When I was really young, growing up in Los Angeles, 8 to about 9, 10, 11 years old, Elgin Baylor was a favorite of mine with the Lakers. He and Jerry West were both kind of equal in my eyes. I was a big Laker fan. We had Laker season tickets in 1966 when I was 10 years old.
Wow.
At Sports Arena where I wound up playing a couple of years for the Clippers. But would go and watch Elgin Baylor and some of the moves he would do, hanging in the air and floating from one side of the basket to the other, the spin, the massé off the glass that he would use to finish up. He was just way ahead of his time, and he just, things that would look really routine now for players to do, but at that time in the mid-'60s, it was like you were watching Giannis Antetokounmpo. You're watching something you've never seen before. And so Elgin was that. And then Jerry West, only because he, Mr. Clutch. I mean, I saw Jerry West hit buckets to tie games or win games no less than 10 times probably in his career. I mean, he was just a great clutch shooter that would always rise to the occasion. And Chick Hearn was the broadcaster. And so it was just a great time to be in Los Angeles. So that was like then. And then high school, it shifted. In Los Angeles, CBS, major network here in Los Angeles or in the United States, they televised the American Basketball Association Game of the Week. And so that would come on early in the morning on a Saturday, like 8, 9, 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. I would get up and watch because more often than not, the Virginia Squires were featured, and Julius Erving was the star of the Virginia Squires. And so at about 15, 16 years old, I fell in love with Dr. J. The afro, the hands, the red and white and blue ball, the dunking, the taking off, dunking on people with such ferocity and aggression. I mean, he became just a favorite of mine at that stage, and still one of my all-time favorite players.
Wow. My next question actually would have been, was there any player you patterned your game after? So was it Elgin?
Well, I mean, I grew up in an era where you had so many good players, like you do. I guess all eras can make that boast. But Elgin, in terms of hang time and body control, definitely, without question, he was a favorite of mine. Julius, in terms of when I was in college at UCLA and even high school, we couldn't dunk. They took the dunk out in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's sophomore season around 1967. Didn't put it back in until my senior year in 1977. And so you couldn't dunk, but in the summers and during any kind of a summer league type situation that I played in Los Angeles, you could dunk. And so emulating Dr. J became kind of the thing to do, but it was hard to do because he had these hands that are a good 2 inches longer than mine. And so, the way he can pump a basketball is not an easy thing to emulate, but his ability to go coast to coast and the afro and the look and just the whole attitude was something that I tried to mimic, I think.
You had an outstanding college career. You basically won everything you can win as a player. You won the championship. You played for the legendary John Wooden. I would like to know, what did John Wooden teach you that helped you in the NBA?
Well, the main thing I learned from John Wooden was I learned so many things, and John Wooden was a person who didn't really stress so much winning games, but it was about personal development and pushing yourself to become the best that you could possibly be. Whether you were a basketball player, you were a mailman, you were a lawyer, you were a doctor, you were an insurance salesman, his whole thing was just to challenge yourself to become the best that you could be, and you measure yourself against yourself. And so with that, it was all about work ethic and how hard you worked And that was one of the things that I was blessed with. Not only John Wooden, but my high school coach was here in L.A. at Crenshaw High School is the all-time winningest coach in California history, state championships and all that. But he was a hard work advocate. My dad, who was my coach when I grew up, who coached high school basketball in Louisiana, where I was born, he was another guy. So for me, it was hard work coupled with John Wooden, the basics, the fundamentals. The first day that you went to practice at UCLA, John Wooden taught you how to do a couple of things: how to put your socks on correctly, nice, tight, and taut, so you didn't get blisters on the bottom of your feet. Then he taught you how to tie your shoes properly, starting at the bottom, tighten those laces, and working your way up on those shell-toed Adidas all the way up to the top, tightening. So it was what it was just a meticulous attention to detail that he passed along, and his thing was fundamentals and doing everything, repetition, and doing everything properly over and over and over again, so that when you got on the court, it became like second nature. So for me, that was the other thing with John Wooden, just being able to practice whatever I needed to develop in terms of a skill, just work on it so habitually and so obsessively that I could master it. And so that was one of the lessons. But again, John Wooden was more about, he had the pyramid of success, which was the blueprint for living in terms of teamwork and how you treat people, and talking about characters more important than reputation. Reputation is like what other people think you are. Character is what you really are, what you know yourself to be. And so that was some of the things that he instilled in us. And even though I was 17, 18 years old, I was into the girls and the party and all the stuff that college had to offer back at that age, I didn't really want to hear all that. But then as you get older and progress through life and challenges and obstacles start to show up, that's when the John Wooden life lessons start to sink in. So, I could go on for hours about Coach Wooden because he's one of my favorite people of all time. Great sense of humor, great coach, and he was just blessed and gifted in terms of his ability to reach a whole different variety of players through the generations, from the 40s when he first started at UCLA all the way until the mid-70s when you had the Vietnam War and Bill Walton and protests and everything else happening. So and the African-American experience and all that. So self-awareness going on. And so he was just a remarkable person.
All right. So you were drafted in 1977, the third pick overall, playing for the Milwaukee Bucks. Were you satisfied with the third pick and going to the Bucks?
No, not at all. No, I should have been the first pick. I was College Player of the Year. I won every major College Player of the Year award that season. Michael Thompson, who was the father of Klay Thompson, we always get into it because he says there was one award I didn't win. That was Basketball Digest. He won that award. He was a junior. But then he likes to brag that was an award picked by the NBA general managers, and so he thought that had more gravitas than the Rupp Award and the other award, the Wooden Award, and the Associated Press, United Press International, all the awards I won. But I won every award, probably 15 awards that year, and he might have won that one, but that's okay. So with that being said, I thought I was the best player in college basketball. Which I was in terms of winning the awards, and I thought I should have been the number one pick. But it was an interesting time in the NBA at that time, 1977. The racial element was at play. The people were saying that there were too many African American ball players, that there was a need in terms of corporate America being more interested in spending money and buying tickets and being a corporate sponsor of the league, that they needed more white players. And so Kent Benson from Indiana, who's a good player, don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but for the Bucks to draft him number one, I think, and me number three, I think my play eventually showed that was not, in terms of evaluating talent, that I was a much better player than he was, and very easily could have been number one.
That's a very good point, because that would have been my next question. It's a really rare occasion that two players, the number one draft pick and the third, end up on the same team. Was it a different kind of pressure not being the first pick and Kent being the number one?
Well, it wasn't for me. I think probably more pressure on Kent, even though he was number one. I had a great agent at the time, great representation, a guy by the name of Donald Dell, pro serve out of Washington, D.C. They represented Adrian Dantley and myself and Moses Malone and just a lot of really good quality players. And so I actually had a better contract. I think I made, on paper, $200,000 a year, and Kent was making 175, 180, whatever it was. So from that standpoint, and I knew that going in, that I was the highest paid rookie of that draft class. So that was some consolation in that. But for me, stepping on the court, I mean, I took it out on Kent Benson. Every opportunity I got, starting from day one, when he first showed up before training camp even started. I mean, I dunked on him so hard about 3 or 4 times, just obliterated him just with dunks coming down in transition. And he's 6'9", not very athletic, and I could take off near the free throw line, and I would just try and just embarrass him. And I think and looking back on it, I probably took it too personally in terms of the vendetta, him being number one. Now, with that being said, what happened was that our very first game as NBA players in mid-October 1977, we're playing against the Lakers, and Kent Benson had mentioned that he was going to play Kareem Abdul-Jabbar physical that night. Kareem was a star of the Lakers, and he said, I'm going to elbow him, I'm going to play him physical. First play of the game, first minute of the game, Kent Benson elbows Kareem in the stomach, and Kareem socks Kent in the jaw. And that was my first game as a professional player. I didn't see it. I was defending Jamal Wilkes at the time, and all I heard was a big thud. And I looked around, and Kent was stumbling, and Kent went down, and Kareem was standing over him like a boxer with his hands up. He was like, get up, man, get up. I knew at from UCLA, and said, hey, Kareem, he's not getting up. Trust me, he's not getting up. And so that was the indoctrination of both myself and Kent Benson to the NBA. But Kent was never really the same that entire year. And I think he might even say that his career from that point on just didn't pan out to be the type of career that maybe it could have if that incident wouldn't have happened that early in his career. I think it was that traumatic for him.
Oh, shoot. Do you remember the first time seeing a poster or a trading card of yourself?
Not really the first time seeing a poster. I mean, I don't remember the exact first time seeing one. I had one when I was signed with Adidas, me over a skyline with the ball elevated near the top of my head like I was going up for a dunk shot, and the caption was Johnson's Law, what goes up goes in. And that was popular poster. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite stories is that I was just kind of perusing through the internet years and years and years ago, and I saw a picture of Michael Jordan in his dorm room at North Carolina when he was a young player, probably 19, 20 years old. Kind of a silly picture with an umbrella inside.
Yes, I know that picture. Yes.
Yeah. But if you look on the wall behind him, there is that poster that says Johnson's Law. He has a poster of me. So what happens, fast forward now to about 20 years ago, he's making the movie Space Jam. Yeah. And so they're out here in Los Angeles. They need some players to come out and play against them. So my son Chris is a player at UCLA. So they call up UCLA. They invite all the UCLA kids to come out and play against Michael Jordan. They got this beautiful dome, enclosed basketball dome built for him. They've got every weight machine in the world. They've got every gambling table in the world. You've got Queen Latifah and Angela Bassett and Charles Barkley hanging out, and all these celebrities hanging out, Dean Cain, Superman. So one day we're playing a real casual game, but 3-on-3 before the real game started. And I'm in my 40s, but I'm still in solid shape. So I go up and do just a real easy dunk. And so Michael turns to me and he says, "Hey, old man, that was not your game when you played. What are you trying to do, man? You wouldn't." So I turned to Michael and I said, "Look, Michael, whatever I was doing back in those days, you had my poster up on your room at North Carolina." And he was, "Oh yeah, I sure did, man. I sure did. I used to love your game. You got me on that one. You got me on that one."
Oh,
so
nice, man.
Claim to fame that Michael Jordan had a poster of Marques Johnson. MJ had a poster of the original up on his wall back in North Carolina.
Crazy, man. I know that picture. He had this yellow umbrella and I think headphones or something like that.
CBS Sports
Yes.
banner in the background. Yeah. But if you look closely, you'll see myself. I think Kareem's maybe on that wall. I think George Gervin's on that wall. So he's got that kind of that NBA Wall of Fame, Michael Jordan style, and I'm one of the guys that he had on his wall. So that I take a lot of pride in that. That the
I
young
was about
fellow,
to say, that must be
Yeah.
flattering.
Oh yeah, it is without question. That a guy of his stature and as great as he was, and that's how it was. And I talk about Elgin Baylor being one of my favorites, Jerry West, Dr. J, and that's how it is with us as ball players. We all have our guys that we kind of look up to and emulate and want to be like, and that's just kind of part of the process.
In your rookie season, you were just killing it. You averaged almost 20 points and 10 boards and 1 steal and 1 block, so outstanding numbers. In any other season, you would have been the Rookie of the Year, but Walter Davis also had a sensational season. Were you disappointed not winning the Rookie of the Year award?
Oh, not at all. And I say that because Walter Davis averaged about 24 a game. Bernard King also averaged in more than I did, like 22, 23 points. So you had 3 really good forwards coming into the league at the same time, and Walter had a great year. And so, I thought I might have had a chance to be a little closer in the voting, but he won in a landslide. Now, the part that I can look back on now with some delight is that we played Phoenix in the first round of the playoffs that year. So now you got the 2 top rookies going against each other, and we were able to sweep them in the playoffs. We beat them. I think it was 2 out of 3 was the series at that time. The first who wins 2 out of 3. We beat them both games. I averaged about 28, about 14 rebounds a game against Walter, and just totally dominated that series. And Walter even said in the newspapers after that series was that he may have been Rookie of the Year during the regular season, but I was definitely Rookie of the Year. And which is why I believe that, and I post this on Twitter all the time, I always think not only just Rookie of the Year, but mainly Most Valuable Player, that it'd be even, I think, more equitable and a better determination of who the best player is if you wait until after the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for MVP, you don't have to do it for every award, but for MVP, there's no reason with the electronic voting, computerized voting, the way things are now, take the voting right after the last game of the finals, and it may be that Russell Westbrook may still win it because he averages the triple-double, and even though he doesn't get to the finals, that's still an achievement worthy of MVP. Or it may be LeBron, it may be Kyrie Irving, it may be Steph Curry, but I think the MVP to me means the guy that means the most in terms of his team's success. And there's no greater success than winning an NBA championship.
Oh, I agree. In your rookie season, you played with Alex English, who averaged like 9 points a game back then. Did you know that one day he will become this scoring machine, averaging like 30 points a game?
It's funny because Alex was my backup at small forward, and probably would have remained so, even though we played together a lot. And we were a good tandem. We were a really effective tandem. I like to see what our 2-man kind of on-court advanced analytics were at that time. But he wound up becoming a free agent. He was a second-round draft pick out of South Carolina, and Indiana Pacers offered him like $5,000 more than what Don Nelson offered him to stay in Milwaukee, and he got out of there. Now, I believe that he got out of there because he knew that he'd be playing behind me or would be playing a position where he would not have a chance to flourish as the scorer he would become. So I went against him every day in practice. He was one of the toughest players I've ever had to guard. He was a very unorthodox player offensively, had a high release. We called him Flick because he would hold the ball high above his head and flick his wrist to get his shot off so you couldn't block it. So we called him Flick. That was his nickname along with Slim Goody. And the fact that he was able to do what he did, it's not shocking, but that offense in Denver that Doug Moe constructed for he and Kiki Vanderway and Dan Issel was perfect for his style, perpetual motion, great condition, took great care of his body, and it really helped him flourish as an offensive player once he went to Denver after he was signed by Indiana as a free agent.
In your second season, you're averaging 26 points a game, and you become an NBA All-Star for the first time. Do you remember who told you that you're an All-Star and what it felt like?
Yeah, I mean, I just remember it was a foregone conclusion. I was pretty close my first year to becoming an All-Star, averaging close to 20 and 10, and they selected Brian Winters from the Milwaukee Bucks to represent Milwaukee in the All-Star game. And Brian told me at my rookie year, it's like, hey, I made the All-Star team over you, but trust me, you'll have plenty more opportunities to play in the All-Star game, and this may be my last chance. And so it was all good. My second year, I started out with 7, 8, 30-point games in a row. It was me and World B. Free and George Gervin, the top 3 scorers in the NBA. So I pretty much knew, based on how I finished my rookie year, I averaged probably 27, 28 points a game in the playoffs against Phoenix, second round series, 7-game series against David Thompson in Denver. Averaged probably 26, 27 points a game against Denver and the great Bobby Jones, one of the greatest defensive players in the history.
Absolutely.
Should be in the Hall of Fame. But the funny part about that All-Star game, it was in Detroit, and so I was named a starter in that game, and there was a guy who liked to do impersonations of ball players. I forget his name, but he impersonated great athletes from all sports, football, baseball. He'd get a uniform and he'd get out on the field. And when we were coming out to warm up, we saw him and noticed that he didn't really belong out there, but he followed us out onto the court, started warming up with us, and funny part. But for me, All-Star games, it's bittersweet because I love being named All-Star games, but I never really had a great All-Star game. I may have scored, 10 points in that first one, may have been my high. If I scored over 7, 8 points after that, I was brought up to be a team guy through high school, through Coach Wooden at UCLA, through Don Nelson with the Bucks. And the All-Star game, there was such an individual kind of an exercise that it was a little bit more difficult. Once you give it up, you're not going to get it back. And I was kind of a guy who was programmed to kind of want to give the ball up early. But it was a great experience. I'm not knocking it. I had a great time.
The Bucks missed the playoffs that season, but 1 year later, you guys are really taking over. You had 6 guys averaging double figures, excluding a rookie named Sidney Moncrief. What was your first impression of Sidney?
Well, Sidney was a funny guy because he was a guy that, first of all, I averaged 25.6, I think, my second year, shot about 55% from the field. Before that third year started, Don Nelson, our coach, he brought me into his office. He asked me, what do you think you can average this year? I said, I can average 28 to 30 points a game, easy, coach. He's like, I believe you, but we don't need that from you. I was like, no, what do you need? He said, well, what we need for you to do is average about 20 to 22 points a game, 7 rebounds, play good defense, and make sure that you distribute the basketball so that everybody else gets an opportunity so that we can have a balanced scoring team. And so that's when you look at my scoring numbers, they dropped down from 25 to like 21. And that was at the request of Don Nelson. It's funny, I don't think many players today, if you ask LeBron James, we don't want you to average 30, LeBron average 20. I don't think he'd be too accepting of that. Giannis Antetokounmpo would probably feel the same way. It was a different era. Again, I was raised with a coach in my household. My dad played for coaches who stressed team over individual, and my coach asked me to reduce my scoring, and so I did so. Now, as a nominee for the Hall of Fame right now, it may be the one thing that may hurt my chances of being elected to the Hall of Fame, because if I would average 27, 28 over 8-10 years, I'd be around 20,000 points, and I'd be guaranteed, like Alex English, be guaranteed to get in. Now, we'll see. But the point is that, we had a great team. We had a balanced team. Sidney Moncrief was a young player who had a lot of pride, had this arrogance about him. We told Sidney that as a rookie, you have to carry the ball bags when we get off the bus. And Sidney says, I'm not carrying ball bags because I'm not no rookie. What do you mean you're not a rookie? I've been playing basketball all my life. I'm not no rookie. I've been playing basketball, for 15 years. You're like 22 years old at that point. All we can do is laugh at just kind of the obstinance of this young player out of Arkansas. But he was a guy that you could see that had immense talent. He didn't come in right away taking the league by storm. That happened a couple of years later during my holdout when I was trying to get some more money out of the Bucks, and that's when he really emerged as the all-star player that he became. But he was one of the greatest all-time teammates I've ever played with, because he was so effective, not only scoring 20 points a game, but he could defend the best offensive player on the other team and lock him down like no other.
So you would agree that Sidney is also one of the most underrated players in NBA history, right?
Yeah, no, without question. He's another nominee for the Hall of Fame. I think both of us deserve to be in. And Sidney is a guy that was he had been two-time Defensive Player of the Year, at least once. I know for sure he was once a Defensive Player of the Year. I think two-time Defensive Player of the Year, perennially on the All-Defensive team, and then would give you 20, 21 points a game on top of that. So, and his ability to make plays. I talked about Jerry West and his ability to hit shots to win games. Sidney's ability to make steals, timely steals, when a team has a chance to win or tie the game up on inbounds plays. I saw him do it at least 3 or 4 times as a player, big blocks in crucial situations. So he was a fun guy to play with because he was a guy that always rose to the occasion.
So the following seasons, the Bucks always perform well. You and Sidney become a dynamic duo. But the East was so loaded back then. How was it fighting against those monster teams like the Celtics, for example, or the 76ers, competition-wise?
It was great. I mean, it was so much fun playing against that caliber of competition. And what's really interesting is that looking back on it, we didn't feel like as Milwaukee Bucks that we were second fiddle to any of them. We felt just as good, just as talented as the Sixers, as the Celtics. One year we won 60 games. Those two teams won 62. I mean, so we were 3 of the tougher teams along with the Lakers and out west. And so what happens though is when you look back, when you have a chance to get the kind of, retrospectively look back on it, and then you understand that you're going against Julius Erving and Bobby Jones and Maurice Cheeks and Daryl Dawkins and Caldwell Jones and then you're going against Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Dennis Johnson with the Celtics. And those lineups, man, when you think about it, were just so stacked and loaded with Hall of Fame caliber players. And to be able to compete with them, take them to 7 games. We swept the Celtics one year, 4 games to nothing, and swept the great Larry Bird and Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale. So just those accomplishments, even though we weren't able to get out of the East and go to the NBA Finals, to be able to play as well as we did against that caliber of competition. I always say if we would have traded for Bob Lanier, sent Kent Benson to Detroit. We got Bob Lanier 1979-1980 season. We finished up the rest of that season like 24-5. I mean, we just dominated with Bob Lanier. But he was 32 years old, bad knees. He was still effective, averaging 17, 18 points a game. But 2 years earlier, he could have averaged 25, 27, 28, 14, 15 rebounds. That would have put us over the hump. But I have no regrets. We competed, fell short, but it's nothing. Coach Wooden used to always say that you go out there and do the best you can. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You can hold your head high. I look back on those years, man, and I hold my head high because we competed.
You mentioned Dr. J being your childhood idol. Your battles against Dr. J were legendary. Was there like always an extra motivation playing against Doc?
Yeah, no, because I grew up worshiping Dr. J. I had a chance to get to know him. My agent and friend and mentor here in Los Angeles, my early years in the NBA was a guy by the name of Willie Knowles. He played for the Boston Celtics in the 60s. He was part of the Boston Celtic team in 1964 that had the first all African-American starting lineup. It was Willie. Tom Heinsohn got hurt, so it was Willie Knowles, Casey Jones, Sam Jones, Bill Russell, and Seth Sanders. That's the first time 5 black players started for an NBA franchise. But Willie was a real philanthropic type of a guy. So out here in Los Angeles, he had these benefit AllStar games in the summer that would benefit underprivileged youth in Los Angeles. And so I got a chance after my senior year to play against Dr. J in a 3-game series. 1 game here in Los Angeles at the Forum, 2 games in Hawaii. And that's when I got to hang around Dr. J, get to know Dr. J. And so my rookie year, he would actually pick me up from the hotel, take me to lunch in Philadelphia, always try and get me to eat an extra piece of cheesecake or 2. Come on, Mom, let's have another piece of cheesecake. You know you like it. Have another piece. And I go, okay, Doc, I get another piece. Then I realized he was fattening me up like a Thanksgiving turkey, and I stopped doing that. But I love Dr. J. He's just one of the classiest guys, and we went at it. We had our battles, And he gave some to me. I gave some to him. Unfortunately, we could never beat his team. I think his teams were far superior at that point in time. Not far superior, but their teams were a little bit better than our team was in Milwaukee. But competing against him is one of the all-time highlights of my career.
So this was part 1 of the podcast with Marques Johnson. Stay tuned for part 2.